Hey everyone, my name is Atharva, and this is my second time TAing the CS 124 course. So, you may have interacted with me through the online help site or during the in person help hours. Over the last 2 semesters of TAing this course, I've had students come up to me and ask me very similar doubts, especially about how to do well on the quizzes we do every week. So, for this reason, I decided to make this video on test taking technique, especially about the weekly quizzes we have in this course. So my motivation for making this video is twofold. First of all, I want you guys to understand that your grade and thereby the points you get on each test during this course is dependent on two factors. The first factor is the knowledge you have about the course, the ability to articulate or think through the concepts you've learned through the various videos and homework problems we've done so far. But a small component of your grade is also going to be your ability to take tests and the ability to do well under a timed pressure situation, which is the 50-minute weekly quiz we have. And secondly, I personally feel that every single one of you guys who's gotten into this university is smart enough to get an A on this course. So I don't want your technique for taking tests to be the reason you don't get an A. So during this video, my plan is to not give you one strategy or one size fits all approach which you guys would want to use throughout all of the quizzes. I want to give you guys a framework which you can use and tweak based on your personal strengths and weaknesses, and use that to come up with your own strategy to hopefully do better on all of the quizzes you do throughout the semester. Okay, everyone. So before we begin, I want to go over the agenda of what I have in mind for this video. So the first thing I have for the agenda is I want to first go over the structure of the quiz, just so that everyone's on the same page. Like everybody knows how many multiple choice questions we have, how many programming questions we have, what the marks, like the points breakup for each one is. I just want to get that out of the way. The second thing I want to talk about after that is, the second thing I want to talk about is timing. So essentially, how you should time various things or various components within the quiz. The third thing I have in mind after that is going to be strategies, like overall strategies, which I have in mind for how you can approach this quiz. And the fourth thing I have is overall ideas. So overall ideas majorly contains the philosophy which I have in mind for just giving exams in general, but also giving exams within CS 124 specifically, and just other fundamental thoughts I wanted to get across. So with that out of the way, let's begin. So let's talk about the exam structure first. Exam structure. So in the exam structure, you have two things. The first thing you have is programming questions. And these programming questions, so let's just make these columns to understand what's happening. You have 3 and you have 12 points for each. The second kind of question you have is multiple choice. So multiple choice, and you have 16 and you have 4 points for each, and this totals to 100 points. So you have an exam every week which is for 100 points, but within that 100 points you also have a timer, and that timer is for 50 minutes. You essentially need to get as many points out of the 100 points you can within these 50 minutes. So the first approach which most people would go for, which I would call the naive idea, is this. You have 100 points and you have 50 minutes. So you go for 2 points per minute. So then what you would have at the back of your mind when you're solving this particular quiz is, I will try to get 2 points for every minute I am on this quiz. But the reason I'm calling this a naive idea is the following. When you look at the amount of points you have for programming, you have 36 points for programming, and that equates to 18 minutes for programming. And for MCQs, you have 64 points, which then equates to 32 minutes. Now, clearly, even for someone who is more experienced in computer science and all of that stuff, anybody knows that 18 minutes for 3 programming questions, so 6 minutes per question, is absurdly low. And similarly, 32 minutes per for multiple choice questions, so like 2 minutes per question, is insanely high. So these two would not do well simply because you want to be able to go much faster through the quiz and you don't want to leave 6 minutes per question for the programming part. So we can do much better on this. So what is the strategy I'm proposing? Well, the strategy I'm proposing is this. You can look at the quiz as 2 chunks. The first chunk will be multiple choice questions and the second chunk will be programming questions. So let's just call them programming question 1, programming question 2, and programming question 3. And then we have MCQ 1 all the way down to MCQ 16. You have these and you have these. So these are 2 sections. Now within these 2 sections, let's call, we don't need to call them section 1 or section 2. So my assumption is, at the end of the day, during a multiple choice like kind of thing, all you're doing is you're looking at the question, reading it, and you're trying to just click on one of the 4 options. And secondly, you have all 4 attempts. Like essentially you are guaranteed at least a point on all of the multiple choice questions. You may get 4 points on each question, or you might just get 1 point, but you're at least guaranteed something. So I feel you should give the least amount of time to the multiple choice questions simply because they're much easier to do and they're much faster to do. Out of the 16 multiple choice questions, I'm sure there are 8 which you'll probably just look at and instantly know the answer for. And then the other 8 you can spend some time on. But overall, I feel you could end up spending 20 minutes here. If you spend 20 minutes on the MCQs, ideally 1 minute per question, ideally. So let me just star that. Ideally try to hit 1 minute per question because you're just going to look at the question, click on the answer, move ahead. And there will be cumulative averaging over all of the 16 questions you go through. Because what's going to happen is you're going to solve the first question. The first question might just take 10 seconds. The second one might take 2 minutes. And overall, it will average out to 1 minute if you have studied and if you know the content really well. So I feel this is achievable, but this is what you should be aiming for. 20 minutes max. So 20 minutes is still what I feel is a bit like a large amount of time, but you could probably do it much faster. So now that we have this out of the way, I would personally go for the MCQs first. But that's just me. You tweak it according to what you want based on your strengths. If you're someone who prefers programming better, or if you feel that will get your brain warmed up, which is something I'll be talking about, then I would suggest you go for the programming questions first. But there are some people who would just want to get a few MCQs out of the way, just something to like bang out really fast. Then MCQs are the way to go first. So that's the first thing. The second question is like the second section is about the programming questions. And within that, you have 3 questions. And if you have 30 minutes left, that will be around 10 minutes per question. And I feel 10 minutes per question here is ideal. The reason I'm saying that is because, again, averaging, one question might just take 5 minutes, but the other question might take 15 minutes. So overall, you will average around 10 minutes per question if you, again, have practiced properly and if you know what you're doing. And there is a subtle strategy within this as well, where when you're doing the programming questions, what happens oftentimes is you write a bit of the programming question and you get stuck. Then instead of sticking to that one question and trying to get it done, it is oftentimes better to just move on to the next question, try to solve that, because it might just be easy. You might get some confidence out of solving that question. And then when you go back, something might just click. So for that reason, I would suggest that you do it this way. Let's say you have 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes left on the dot. You start with question number 1 and you are at the 10-minute point. So you hit exactly 10 minutes. Now there's 20 minutes left. And now you have to solve question 2 and question 3, and you've not completely finished question 1. So then there are two choices. Choice 1, stay. And choice 2 is move on. So if you stay, there is a chance you will get it in the next 1 minute, but there's also a chance you will not get it throughout the whole quiz, and that might decrease the amount of points you will get on the subsequent questions. So I would suggest, this is just my suggestion, you can try tweaking it on one quiz, seeing how it goes, and then like just seeing if the strategy works for you. At the 10-minute point, try to move on to the next question and try solving that. Because there's a chance you may have already done something similar, or you may know how that works. And let's say it takes you 8 minutes for this one. Then you can go back to question 1. Let's say this was question 2. You can go back to question 1, try to finish it. If you get it, well and good, you're done. If not, move back on to question 3 and try solving it. In this process, you've done 2 things. The first thing is, your brain works in like 2 ways. Like this is something I've just heard on some podcast, but there's like direct concentration, there's indirect concentration. Your brain is still processing things in the background. It might just happen that you look at the question again and something just clicks and you're able to solve question 1. If not, you always have the chance of getting full points on question 2 and question 3. But at least you know you tried all 3 questions, and at least you know that you gave all 3 of them your best shot. Because if you look back and you're like, oh, question 3 was easy and I wish I had more time to do question 3, but I just sunk all of my time in question 1 and question 1 was the hardest of the 3, then you'll just have regret. So I would suggest this. Again, this is completely up to you. You can choose what strategy you want to employ. And that is why we have so many quizzes. We have by the first few quizzes after you watch this video, you can try your own strategy. You can tweak this and see what works for you. And then you can solidify your strategy for the rest of the semester. So that is the strategy side of things from my point of view. The last thing I wanted to cover was 4 fundamental ideas of test taking in general, which I wanted to convey. The first thing, idea number 1, is the idea of warming up within the exam. What happens a lot of times is, let's say you just got out of bed and you have your exam at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you just join the Zoom call, you turn on the quiz and you just start working. You will not be able to like start recollecting things as fast as possible if you are in such a situation. So what I would suggest in terms of warm up is you could try to solve a few questions just before the quiz. That way your brain is primed to look at coding problems in a certain way, and your brain has started to like look at the things you've learned about this course in the past, and it'll be easier for you to recollect things when you're going through the quiz. That's one thing. And even if you're not able to warm up before the quiz for this quiz, what you could do is you could go for the MCQs first. And let's say, now I'm assuming you're a person who is better at MCQs than programming questions. If it's the other way around, then this advice will just be switched around. So what you could do is you can go through the MCQs. And when you are going through the MCQs, your brain will be a bit slow first, but then it'll eventually start ramping up. And when that happens, and when you go to the programming problems, you'll be able to go through them much faster because you'll know exactly what you're thinking about. Like all of the thoughts will be on the tip of your tongue, so to speak, as opposed to somewhere hidden behind. That's the first idea I had, which is warming up. The second thing I had in my mind was timed practice, in the sense that at the end of the day, your quiz is going to be timed. So when you are doing programming problems, when you're practicing, it doesn't make sense for you to throw 2 hours at a problem, because you're not going to get 2 hours to solve a single problem when you're in the quiz. You're going to have to solve it in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. So in this particular situation, what I would suggest is when you're practicing, keep a phone next to you with a countdown timer on. You might start that countdown timer with 20 minutes, or if you're really good at it, you can start it with 10 minutes as well. But keep a countdown timer so that your brain will know exactly what to, like you will start training your brain to work better under pressure. Because when you have that timer in the top right corner of that website counting down, you don't want that pressure to get to you, and pressure to be the reason you didn't do well, even though you knew all of the information or all of the content for that particular exam. So the second idea would be timed practice. Note that this doesn't apply to MCQs exactly, because MCQs are theoretical. So you're just going to have to click through them, right? And that is completely based on how well you know the concepts which have been taught so far. The third idea I had in mind was it was a more fundamental idea about how to approach these kind of exams, which is you're giving your exam to maximize points. At the end of the day, you are learning, but you're also gunning for points. So try to look at this as less of a way to just test yourself, but more as a competition to maximize the amount of points you can gain per unit time, which is what I spoke about initially, about being as efficient as possible within the 50 minutes you're given. But the mentality, or you can say the philosophy, would be you're giving this for points. You So the aim is maximizing them. I'm gonna underline this in bold red because that's really important in my opinion. And the fourth idea I had in mind was the idea of not having to do this in one pass. I've seen a lot of students try to give this exam in one shot, in one pass, but you don't have to look at it that way, because at the end of the day, you can refer to previous questions and come back and forth. So you don't have to go from top to bottom. It's not like you can't go back to the question unless you've solved it or you've already hit three multiple choice questions, like three multiple options, and all three of them were wrong. But if you if you do a particular question and you're not able to do it within the 10 minutes I said, or just you want to switch it up, or you want to go to question 3 first because it seems a bit easy, do that. So the idea is do not to do this in one pass. There's no shame in doing question 3 first, then question 1, then question 2. You can jump around as much as you want. At the end of the day, the point is to maximize the amount of points you're getting in every single quiz throughout. So let's just summarize what we've learned so far. The first thing is try to warm up before the quiz, because that will get your brain revved up in order to do really well on it. The second thing is try to do timed practice. Put a timer next to you when you're doing these questions, when you're practicing, because that will help you work better under time pressure when you're in the exam. The third thing is the mentality or the philosophy of you're in this for points, not just for learning. You're definitely learning a lot, and the videos and everything are teaching you a lot. But these 50 minutes are to gain as many points as possible per unit time. And the last thing is don't try to do this in one pass. If you're not able to, that's completely fine. Then the second thing is the exam structure is 36 points for programming questions, 64 points for MCQs. That totals to 100 points in 50 minutes. The naive idea of trying to do 2 points per minute is not as efficient as you would want it. So try to create your own strategy based on the framework I've laid out on this particular slide, which is to try to split time up between the MCQ section and the programming question section, and giving a certain amount of minutes per question, and creating a strategy for knowing what to do when you face a roadblock. Are you going to stay or are you going to move on? And stick to it during the exam because you've thought about it before. Stick to it, and I'm sure if you sharpen the test taking knife of your arsenal, I'm sure you'll do really well on this course. And I hope this video will help you get much better points on the quiz. It will help you get a much better grade in this course. Yeah, thank you for watching, and feel free to give me any feedback you have. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. So yeah, thank you so much.